Lyra stood on the balcony of the upper palace and watched the twin suns rise beyond the scarlet dunes. Heat shimmered across the landscape in golden ripples. The towers of the royal fortress cast long shadows across the stone courtyards. She breathed slowly, her chest plates rising and falling with a soft metallic rhythm. Every motion radiated energy. Every gesture gave off a shimmering haze of thermal light. She was the crown princess of her people, and one of the most powerful individuals her world had ever produced. Yet she knew better than anyone that her strength was also her burden. Her species matured differently from most sapient clans in the galaxy. Each noble heir developed a core of thermal energy, a living furnace woven into the body. Lyra's core was stronger than any on record. Even as a child, she had glowed with a radiant aura. By adulthood, that aura had grown so intense that no male of her species could stand within a few steps of her without risk of injury. The royal attendants wore heat shielding whenever they approached her. The palace walls were reinforced to tolerate her presence. Visitors were warned to keep a respectful distance. Lyra spent her days walking the high halls and empty gardens, listening to the hum of protective barriers. She had grown skilled at pretending the stillness did not bother her, but she was alone far more often than she wanted to admit. Her tutors praised her discipline. Her guards praised her dignity. Her council praised her seeming calm. Yet she wished for someone who could step close, speak without fear, and see her not as a hazard, but as a person. She often heard her caretakers whisper that no partner within her kind could ever match her thermal core. They feared that even a ceremonial greeting could cause harm. So the talk of her future always drifted toward alliances with distant species, though that too seemed futile. Many species collapsed in extreme heat. Others feared her aura the moment they sensed it. Some ambassadors bowed from across the room and retreated as quickly as protocol allowed. Lyra never blamed them. She had learned early that her nature intimidated others. She accepted the role of isolated heir because she believed her people needed her strength more than she needed companionship. She held this thought close. Yet as the suns rose and cast their fire across the dunes, she wondered if life would forever remain this way. Her quiet morning ended when her chief attendant approached the balcony. He wore layered shields that gave him an awkward, bulky silhouette. He bowed respectfully. "Your Highness, the delegation from the human trade sector has arrived. They request an audience." Lyra nodded. Her world had traded with humans for years. They were adaptable, clever, unpredictable. She had met human diplomats before. Most behaved politely, but they kept a wide distance. Some trembled. Some spoke too quickly. Some stared too long at her glow. None stayed long. She followed her attendant through the corridors toward the reception hall. Every step she took left a faint pattern of warmth on the polished stone. When she arrived, the ornate doors slid open at her approach. Inside stood 3 humans. 2 were older officials in formal attire. Between them was a younger one. He seemed relaxed, observing the hall with open curiosity. His posture showed no sign of fear, and he stepped forward without waiting for the officials to guide him. He bowed politely. "Princess Lyra, it's an honor. My name is Rowland." A whisper passed through the palace guards. Lyra's gaze rested on him, puzzled by his composure. She felt her aura radiate outward in a soft pulse. The older officials took a cautious step back, but Rowland did not move. "You stand very close for a visitor," Lyra said. "I was told you are dangerous to approach," he answered. "But you don't feel dangerous. You feel strong." Her attendant stiffened. For a moment, the hall seemed to hold its breath. Lyra studied him, measuring his sincerity. Humans could tolerate a wider range of temperatures than many species, yet her heat could still overwhelm them. She watched his face for signs of strain, but he remained calm. "You are not bothered by this heat?" she asked. "Only a little," Rowland said. But I grew up in a desert region. Nothing here feels unfamiliar. One of the older officials cleared his throat. Forgive him, Princess. He is new to diplomacy. Lyra raised a hand to stop further apologies. He shows courage. That is not a flaw. Rowland smiled. The brief movement startled her, not because it was inappropriate, but because it was directed at her without fear or strategy. It was a simple, genuine smile. The audience began with formal matters. The older officials presented their proposals for mineral exchange and transport cooperation. Lyra listened with polite focus, responding with measured questions. Rowland stood quietly beside them, but did not interrupt. When the meeting concluded, Lyra dismissed the assembly and prepared to return to her private chambers. She was surprised when the older official spoke again. Princess, he said, Rowland will remain for further analysis of environmental compatibility. With your permission, he will inspect the palace systems. Lyra agreed. When the others departed, Rowland approached her again. He adjusted a scanning device on his wrist. If you are willing, he said, I'd like to run tests on how your thermal field interacts with palace architecture. It might help design stronger shielding for visiting envoys. You do not fear standing so close during these tests, she asked. He looked up at her. If I feared you, I wouldn't be doing this. She felt a flicker of something warm that had nothing to do with her natural heat. He worked with careful focus, studying the way her aura affected the structure around her. He took readings from walls, floors, and energy barriers. He asked her to shift her position and adjust her breathing to observe fluctuations. She followed his requests. No one had ever spoken to her with such casual ease. You do not treat me like an unpredictable force, Lyra said. You are not a force, Rowland replied. You are a person. That simple statement tightened something in her chest. She had been treated as a symbol her entire life. A weapon, a political centerpiece, a figure too powerful to touch. Hearing. Someone described her in plain human terms, caught her off guard. How do humans define a person? She asked. Someone who thinks, chooses, changes, and tries, Rowland said. Strength doesn't stop someone from being a person. Her aura brightened slightly. She stepped back instinctively, afraid she might harm him. Yet he waved her concern away. I'm all right, he said. This heat pushes me, but it doesn't break me. Lyra realized then that he was sweating, yet his eyes remained steady. He was not unaffected. He was simply refusing to retreat. She admired him for it. They continued the environmental tests for several hours. Rowland asked thoughtful questions about her thermal core, never prying into forbidden topics, but showing genuine curiosity. Lyra explained her abilities as best she could. She appreciated that he listened without flinching or exaggerating her power. When the suns began to descend, their tests ended. Rowland handed her a small device. I recorded everything. I'll compile it into a full analysis. If I'm right, we can tune the palace shielding to let more people safely approach you. Lyra held the device gently between her fingers. Why do you care so much about that? Because you shouldn't have to stand alone on a balcony every day, he said. Her throat tightened at the accuracy of his words. She had never told him about her mornings. Yet he had understood at a glance. Humans had a way of seeing what others tried to hide. Thank you, she said. He nodded, gave her another warm smile, and left the hall. For a long moment she stood there in the quiet. She felt lighter. The palace seemed less empty than before. The next morning she returned to her balcony. The dunes glowed under the rising suns, but her thoughts drifted toward a human, walking through the palace corridors with a data tablet in hand. She found herself waiting for the moment he would report his findings. He arrived at midday. The guards let him pass. He carried a bundle of tools and a confident grin. I finished the analysis, he said. I can modify the shielding to make the zone around you safer. She stepped aside to give him room to work. He installed improved regulators along the balcony rail, adjusting their frequency to redirect heat without generating harmful reflections. "How does this help others approach me?" she asked. "It shapes the outer layer of your aura," he explained. "Not in a way that weakens you. It just prevents the intense peaks from hitting people too hard." When he activated the new system, a gentle ripple passed over the balcony. She felt her aura interacting with the regulator. It was comfortable, balanced, safe. Rallin tested the field by stepping closer. Then closer still. Her heart quickened when he came within a distance no other male of any species had ever dared. He stood at her side, the suns reflected in his dark eyes. "How do you feel?" he asked. "I feel steady," she said. "And I feel warm, but not overwhelmed," he answered. For the first time in her life, she could stand beside someone without fear that her presence would cause harm. The realization hit her with quiet force. "Rallin," she said softly, "you have done something no one else has ever attempted." He shrugged. "Seemed worth trying." That understated comment made her smile. She turned toward the horizon. He stood close enough that she could sense his heartbeat beneath the heat. The moment felt unreal. "Would you like to walk through the gardens?" she asked. "Only if you join me," he said. They left the balcony and walked through the gardens that had always felt too empty. With the new R,